writer's block, creative block, procrastination, perfectionism, self-doubt, all of these things we're going to talk about. Are you out of ideas to continue a song from moving forward? Have you been trying to come up with something but nothing really good comes out? Does it leave you feeling frustrated, annoyed, uninspired, and just wanting to quit? So today we're going to talk about 5 strategies to effectively overcome the creative struggle. So before we get started, if you're feeling any of these things, if you're hitting a wall with your creativity, I just want you to know that this is totally okay. Most musicians, most producers, most creatives of all types face some form of writer's block at some point on their journey, and it's completely normal. Hey yo, it's Alex from Metamind Music, and with this channel, it's my mission to help musicians produce themselves by developing their mindset, expanding their creativity, and connecting to their inner artist in a deeper way. Number 1 is this idea of death by 1,000 cuts, but in our scenario, it would be death by 1,000 decisions. And this is the idea that we're completely bombarded and overwhelmed by decisions, by options, by possibilities, and by information in a modern music production environment. So in the work of Barry Schwartz named The Paradox of Choice, he talks about this idea that when we have an overwhelming amount of decisions, that it actually reduces our ability to be creative. It reduces our ability to be confident in what we're deciding. Because for example, if you have 100 kick drum samples, 100 snare samples, 100 bass sounds that you're going to audition and pick from, with that sheer amount of choice, you will subconsciously be questioning your decision. And with this sheer amount of choice, once you make a decision, you're going to be subconsciously questioning your decision. And with the sheer amount of choice, you're going to be subconsciously questioning your decision. So once you've picked a kick sample, you might question if this is the best kick sample for your track. Or once you've actually picked a snare sample, you might question if the kick sample is the best kick sample for that snare sample. And once you have those 2 things picked, you might then pick a bass sound. But once you select a bass sound, you might go back and question your original decision. Do you see how this could be a problem? A good analogy for this is, have you ever sat in front of Netflix and literally browsed options for 30 minutes to 45 minutes and never made a decision to pick anything? So it's this kind of decision anxiety that paints the picture of information overwhelm in our modern music production environment. All right, so the solution to this is to limit your options. You want to intentionally limit yourself. So this could be only working with specific software instruments. This could be only working with a certain amount of tracks. This could be only working in a certain genre. This could be actually only working with real instruments. It can take many forms, but the key is that you are intentionally limiting your options so that you can actually exercise your creativity. Because it's not about the sheer amount of resources and the sheer amount of options that you have. It's more about your resourcefulness with the options at your disposal. So if you've limited your options, you are forced to be more creative. You see how this works? And you can actually gamify this process of limiting your options. So you could, for example, only use 4 instruments to build a whole track. Or you could build a whole track using only samples. Or you could build a whole track using random presets. So whichever preset you find first, you just go with that. Whatever form it takes, you're going to want to take some time to visualize the outcome of your project and limit your options accordingly. So beyond limiting your options, it's also very useful to have a systematic framework for you to tackle your projects. If you'd like to learn more about my personal workflow and a 7-step system that will give you a framework to stay focused and not get overwhelmed, you can download it in the link below. 2 is to jumpstart your creativity. And what do I mean by this is you want to find ways that inspire you, that motivate you, that actually set the stage for you to be creative or for you to become inspired. So one great idea to do this is to go back through a catalog of music that you love and find those magical moments that really speak to you. And with those magical moments, you want to find what characteristics are actually making you feel so connected to the music. And as you start to extract these magical moments from some of your favorite music, some of your favorite artists, hopefully that will start to get your creative gears turning and inspire you to create something similar but in your own voice. Another quick way to jumpstart your creativity is to utilize happy accidents. Sometimes in my project I will move things around on the timeline, and sometimes they won't line up properly, and lo and behold, it creates a magical moment that I would have never thought of in a million years. You can also do this by looping parts, by reversing parts, by chopping up parts, by playing around with waveforms, all this kind of stuff to really just see what happens. Another way to do this is if you have Ableton or some tool that will let you launch multiple clips or multiple ideas at the same time, is to mix and match some of these ideas that you didn't create together and see what results happen. So another thing you can do is to use the robots. So you could simply select a specific scale to work within in your DAW. You could use an arpeggiator or other MIDI effects to start generating rhythms or melodies or progressions randomly. You could also get a head start by using samples and building a track around a sample and removing the sample. Or you could sample your own things in your natural environment or record your own instruments. And you can also use awesome plugins such as Scalar 2 or Captain Chords to really help you identify certain chords you might resonate with and build epic chord progressions in no time flat. So another quick tip is to utilize your smartphone, which most people have on them 24/7, and utilize the note feature and the voice memo feature to record any and all ideas that come to you in the moment. So whether it's just humming a melody or a rhythm or typing out a song idea or some lyric ideas, it's always handy to capture inspiration when it strikes. Another great way to jumpstart your creativity in a session is to actually bounce out the audio of a project that you are working on, listen back to it, and outside the studio, make a list of 3 to 5 items that you want to do. And when you're making these items, try to be as specific as possible. So for example, it could be like, I want to try a variation of the main rhythm with some percussion samples. It could also be, I want to create an accompanying bass line to the main bass line with wavetable. Or it could be, I want to add another layer that complements the main melody of my song with my guitar going through my pedal board. So as you write out this list, you just want to make sure that you are extremely specific so that you don't go down any rabbit holes and you make the most out of following your checklist in your session. You can also think about creating a narrative, whether it be around a story or around an environment. And now think about how can you create that environment or describe that story with sound. And a great way to explore this type of thinking is to listen to movie soundtracks, because a lot of the time, the soundtrack of the movie will really paint a picture of what's happening in the movie, either emotionally or environmentally. So you can really use this to your advantage. And all this to say is that you want to do something maybe different than your normal workflow to jumpstart your creativity and get you outside of your comfort zone so you can tap into that flow state a little bit quicker. All right, so number 3 is having a holistic and flexible workflow. And what do I mean by this? Well, in the whole process of music production, there are many different steps and phases that we have to go through when we go from taking our very first ideas all the way to a finished master. And a great way to look at categorizing some of these various phases is to separate them from primary right brain focused or primary left brain focused. Okay, so more creative focus and more analytical focus. And this goes along with the idea that some of the phases in music production are a lot more analytical focused, such as editing, such as the technical part of mixing, such as setting up your session, and some of it is a lot more right brain focused, such as creative improv, arrangement, and the creative side of mixing. And the key is you want to have a workflow that supports these different types of thinking at the right part of the process. You don't want to be too left brain focused or too right brain focused. You kind of want to have a dance going on where you're editing ideas and then you're creating new ideas. And then you're refining them and shaping them some more. And then you're going into flow state once again. And the key is you want to have a framework and a process that is flexible enough to have variation. Because if you change the process, you change the outcome. So if you feel stuck with your music production or in a rut or as if you're creating the same thing over and over, if you can change part of the framework or your framework is flexible enough, you can actually influence the result by changing the process. And the right workflow will allow you to keep the right mindset and the right focus at the right time in the process. So again, if you're interested in picking up my 7-step workflow, you can find the link below. All right, so step 4 is to simply push through it. Push through the block. And little caveat, this will not always work, and you don't always want to do this because you can't force creativity, you can't force inspiration, but the muses of inspiration tend to bless those who show up most often. So a great analogy to think about approaching your art like a professional is to think about if you worked at a day job or if you currently work at a day job, that you are expected to show up at a specific time and deliver a certain amount of performance. Otherwise, you're going to get in trouble, right? You might get fired, you might get let go. And the whole idea of acting like a professional towards your craft is to bring up that same amount of accountability and expectation out of yourself. If you just stop showing up for work out of nowhere, or if you go to your boss and say like, I'm not really feeling it today, I just don't feel inspired to work, you would not last very long. And if that's unacceptable in your workplace, why is that acceptable with your own work and your own craft? A great book that I would recommend that talks about this subject is called The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. Definitely check that out. So sometimes, not all the time, but perfectionism, procrastination, writer's block, self-doubt can all stem from this subconscious belief or the subconscious fear of rejection, or some perspective that you are not good enough, or some perspective that you cannot overcome a problem. The solution for this is to really take a step back and realize that many of the problems that we make for ourselves, not only just in music or music production or art, but in life in general, stem from our own perceptions, right? So a lot of the issues that we experience lie in the eye of the beholder, meaning on the perspective that you give or that you give power to a specific situation. For example, if you're hitting creative block or problem or an obstacle, you could see this as negative, as something that's holding you back, something that's getting in your way, or you could flip it around and see it as an opportunity to learn something new, an opportunity to try something new, or an opportunity to grow as a person. And basically both of these perspectives can describe the same situation. So you want to take a step back and maybe try to reevaluate some of the problems, some of the creative struggles, some of the obstacles you're facing, and maybe try to flip the script so that you can create an empowering narrative, right? Some sort of motivational perspective on these problems. And number 5 is to take a break, right? Take it down a few notches, slow it down. And this is very important in our modern day and age because we're all told to hustle. We're all told to work, go for it. Chase your dreams, chase your dreams, chase your dreams. Work 26 hours a day, 8 days a week. Let's go. But the truth is that is impossible and unhealthy. And life is all about striking that magical balance between pushing yourself to accomplish something, but also allowing room for the other important things in your life and keeping it in balance, right? Because especially with creative work, it is far too easy to get stuck in our own heads if we hyper obsess over something, or if we overwork something, over perfect something. A lot of the times we're just going to end up going in circles in our head, right? And going in circles in our head is not going to allow you to move forward in the most productive and sane way possible, right? So sometimes it's just wise to take a break and focus on something else that you're passionate about, right? And this kind of paints the picture of having a holistic lifestyle, because whether you're aware of it or not, your diet, your sleep patterns, your stress levels, your ability to focus, how often you exercise, will all influence your ability to be creative and to actively problem solve and make decisions, which makes up most of the creative process. Any creative art in general is a very long series of making decisions. And sometimes it's nice to focus on something else, whether it's getting lost in a book, playing a cool video game, going for a walk, doing some exercise. And in that time, you really want to start reflecting and start discovering the things that are truly important to you in life. And as you interface with various different things in life, experience new things, meet new people, hang out with friends, experience cool art, you will inevitably find what is truly meaningful to you in life. And if you can find a way to express and transmute that into your art, you will start to find your own voice and unlock your creativity to a whole other level. So sometimes you want to think about, what do you want in life? What do you not want in life? Really discover the core of your motivation as to why you're so passionate about doing this. And remember, the root word of motivation is motive. So what is your motive, right? And if you can find that motive within your daily life, within other activities, it will start to all interconnect into your craft. So hey, if you're facing writer's block right now, or just getting started in music production, or having trouble finishing projects, I've created a 7-step framework that helps you go from your very first ideas all the way to a finished master, all while remaining flexible enough for you to adapt it to your own tastes and your own preferences and artistic vision. So if you're interested, you can download that in the link below. And let me know, have you faced writer's block? Is this a big obstacle for you? Or is it something that just happens from time to time? And if so, let me know what you've tried to overcome writer's block in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you've tried, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and start a conversation below. And we'll see you in the next video.